having empathy for you. You a lying-ass mother son of a bitch.
A new storm is developing behind the velvet ropes of love and hip-hop, and insiders can't stop talking about Yandy's violent showdown. But the twist that has everyone screaming Rasheeda's surprising betrayal murmurs are rife. During last week's recording, Rasheeda not only sided with Jessica, but publicly degraded Yandy in front of the whole cast fans. When startled to hear that Rasheeda supposedly turned her back on the woman she once called sister, provoking yells of "I'm done" that resonated around the studio, emotions ran high as cameras filmed Yandy's collapsing makeup, disheveled voice, breaking hands shaking as she accused Rasheeda of leaving her for fresh relationships. The family was left split as friends and crew rushed in to separate the two women, but the harm seemed irreversible. Could this be the bombshell that finally forces Yandy to leave the show for good? Or is it simply another ratings-driven spectacle? Behind-the-scenes film apparently shows Rasheeda surrounded by Jessica's followers yelling, "We stand together." While Yandy rushes out in tears tonight, the teaser sprinkles glimmers of angry voices, slammed doors, and the raw Rasheeda moves down to deliver a stinging sentence that freezes Yandy in her tracks. Whispers abound about hidden recordings and dramatic off-camera relationships. Stay tuned to see whether these accusations hold any in. The next season may launch without its strongest. Queen, the situation exploded the instant Rasheeda arrived into the rehearsal with her arms crossed and mouth tight, leaving Yandy gaping. After Rasheeda's astonishment, speculations circulated around the hallways that she may support Jessica, but no one anticipated the frost in Rasheeda's voice when she replied, "I can't be a part of this charade anymore," and went away. Yandy's eyes filled with anguish, her meticulously applied makeup pouring down her cheeks as if tracing the lines of betrayal. Surrounding crew members paused mid-setup, wondering whether to assist or pull aside and let the storm calm on its own. Fans are surprised to envision the Queen of Poise undone so utterly. Yet at that moment, the family was split in more ways than ever before, and she remained glued to the place, her fists clenched at her sides, replaying Rasheeda's remarks. The ambient buzz of cameras and mic checks melted into a heavy stillness in the corner. Money and Stop exchanged uncomfortable looks. Wondering how to soothe the heated tension, Jock approached cautiously, anguish engraved over his face. "Yandy, talk to me," he pushed quietly, but Yandy's breath seized in her throat and she shook her head, incredulity oozing into her tone. "She chose her side," shimmer-mured voice shaking. "She chose Jessica over me." Emotions raced wild as Jock attempted to comfort her, his arm a tenuous lifeline in the sea of commotion. The air crackled as Jessica strutted into frame, a victorious grin flickering on her lips. She felt Rasheeda's win. Her eyes shone with vindication as she approached Yandy, her footfall echoing like taunts. "Did you truly believe you were untouchable?" she inquired, her voice low but fierce. Yandy glared back, wounded pride flashing into anger. She fired back, unreachable. "You're the one who's been playing games?" The words shot across the room, and the cameras immediately began rolling, recording every spark of fury that went between them. Behind them, Rasheeda's silhouette deepened. "She spoke from the threshold. Enough of this," she whispered, but her words did not comfort. They hurt Yandy, who turned around with tears flowing out. "Enough. After you stood with her," Rasheeda's lips pinched into a narrow line. "I stood for what seemed right," she said, her voice tight. Yandy's eyebrows furrowed. "Do you believe this is correct?" she demanded. Rasheeda's eyes faltered. "I believe aligning with the truth counts more than devotion to falsehoods," she muttered, turned on her heel and marching away. As Rasheeda withdrew, Jock grasped Yandy's arm and steadied her tumble. "This is ridiculous," he murmured, concern etched in his furrowed brow. Yandy stared at the spot Rasheeda had occupied moments ago, breathing hard. "How could she?" she asked, voice breaking. Jock was caught between soothing his buddy and participating in a quarrel. That was not his fault. "People change," he eventually said, "but you deserve the truth." His words hit Yandy like a lifeline tossed into a churning sea. She said, her eyes flashing despite the tears. "Then tell me what you know," she hissed, her voice cut with agony. The cameras tracked their whispered argument while the director's voice crackled in the background. "We live in 5 crew members hurried to readjust lights and adjust mics, attempting to preserve the facade of a typical shot, but nothing about today seemed routine." A hush descended over the crowd in the studio chairs, their exhilaration muted. By the tension permeating the set, fans are stunned that a simple lineup rehearsal could turn into such a personal conflict, yet here they were, witnessing the collapse of a sisterhood. Yandy gently pushed Jock aside and straightened her shoulders. She raised her chin, prepared to confront Rasheeda one final time in front of cameras. Turning, she strode after her old comrade, her words ringing down the hallway. "Rasheeda, you owe me an explanation." Rasheeda halted outside a cosmetics trailer, hand placed against the chilly doorframe. She turned slowly. Explanation. She repeated, "You want an explanation?" Tears glistened in her eyes as she walked closer, narrowing the space until their faces were inches away. Explained, she spit, "I can't stand by while you harm everyone." For a storyline, Yandy's eyes blazed damage. "Everyone," she snapped. "You mean?" Revealed the falsehoods. Rasheeda's fingers clenched into fists. "Meant humiliate me." Yandy gulped hard, anguish and rage clashing in her chest. "I told the truth," she whispered, her voice shrill. "And you turned." Rasheeda's shoulders trembled. "As I turned my back on lying." She said, "You built your empire on drama." And a shudder swept through Yandy, tears running down her, the rawness in her words slashed Rasheeda's determination like a razor dot in that paused instant. The stagehand screamed out, "Places everyone." The sharp admonition sent the ladies stumbling back into their positions, personal bleeds oozing into the script. The cameras snapped on, red lights shining as the host's voice broke the quiet. "Welcome back to Love and Hip Hop." The crowd cheered politely, unknowing that the actual drama had already transpired. Yandy returned to her mark, face pale but electrified. She straightened her shoulders as Rasheeda and Jessica took their seats across from her. The planned scenario called for a straightforward group discussion, but the tension imbued every phrase with new venom, mouth hovering close, ready to, if the simmering tension bubbled over. Again, viewers are stunned by how truth and acting melded in one breathless instant. Generating as the cameras rolled, Jessica plunged into her lines with frigid precision. Back in her dressing room, Yandy walked before a mirror, analyzing the reflection, gazed back at her, her mouth trembling as she rehearsed Rasheeda's treachery in her thoughts. A knock sounded at the door. Jock popped his head in, and Dandy, the publicist, wanted a statement. Yandy shook her head, voice harsh as steel. "No," she responded. "I'm not giving them sound bites. They need to see the complete picture." Jock nodded. "I understand that," he said. "Just take a minute." Yandy sighed, pushing her hand against the cold glass. "I will," she assured, as the crew adjusted the set for the next scene. Rumors circulated. "Did you notice Rasheeda's side with Jessica? I thought they were sisters." "I can't believe." Yandy's sobs were genuine. Fans are surprised by every rumor, every teaser, fueling anticipation for what happens next. But behind the scenes, the actual narrative was only starting to unfold, with each lady facing a loyal tier, ambition, truth, performance, family, or celebrity. And in that tight interval before the cameras ran again, none of them could deny how much was at risk. When the cameras stopped, the atmosphere crackled with unresolved tension. Yandy collapsed into a nearby chair, her knees quivering as she fought to regulate her breath. Jock remained by her side, concerned, imprinted in his face. Money lingered quietly, giving a bottle of water with gentle eyes. The normal backstage noise was muffled, and crew workers exchanged looks, wondering whether of the day's filming could go. Fans are stunned at how fast a rehearsal escalated into personal betrayal. And now the shadows of that moment remained like ghosts in every area. Yandy, she took a cautious drink of water, her fingers quivering as the cold liquid calmed her throat. "I never thought Rasheeda would side with her," she mumbled. Jock perched on the edge of the chair. "Neither did I," he said. "But you have to remember, she's been under pressure to stay relevant, and Jessica's been whispering doubts in her ear for weeks." Money nodded. "We saw them discussing in the parking lot after rap, and she was unhappy over the." Sandy's eyes narrowed, and she chose story above friendship, asking. Pain and rage mingled in her tone. Shock sighed. "It's not that easy. She's divided between devotion to you and the dread of being marginalized." The words lingered in the air like a tentative ceasefire. Yandy straightened, pulling her hair off her face. "I need to confront her," she whispered determinedly, forcing off the anguish in her voice. Jock stood, offered his elbow, saying, "I'll be right there," and he fell in with them as they walked. The corridor lights produced extended reflections in Rasheeda's dressing room, the polished floor, with each stride mirroring the weight of what lies ahead. Fans amazed at the courage it takes to face infidelity head-on, and emotions ran hot even before they reached the halted before Rasheeda's door. Jock rapped lightly. Inside, Rasheeda's muffled voice said, "Come in." The door swung open. Rasheeda stood framed by the brightness of her vanity lights, eyes red-rimmed. Cease and Money lingered in the corridor. Respecting the private time, Yandy came in, pulse hammering. "We need to talk," she murmured, voice calm. Rasheeda crossed her arms, her lips squeezed into a tight line. "We do," she agreed with rigid movements as she pointed. Yandy sat on the little sofa, and the space seemed tiny, fraught with unsaid word. Jock leaned against the wall, arms folded, Money placed on the vanity stool, and Cece lingered by shut the door. Yandy drew a big breath. "I feel cheated," she said. "We developed something genuine over years, yet it seemed like you wiped it in an instant." Rasheeda's face softened for a minute. "I didn't erase it," she murmured gently. "I simply saw you spiral into drama, and I worried it would undermine all we stood for." Yandy's eyes flared. "So you sided with Jessica's lies?" she asked, tone edged with hurt. Rasheeda hesitated. "I sided. Jessica showed me texts you given to producers, talking about compromising authenticity for ratings." Yandy's eyes welled up with tears as she claimed you no longer cared about your family. "Messages were taken out of context," she complained, "and I was expressing irritation, not conspiring treachery." Rasheeda's face wavered between fury and guilt. "I should have asked you first," she conceded, walked forward. "You both know how words may be distorted backstage," he stated. "We need clarity before choices. Money supplied gradually if the truth is what important. Let's hear both sides." Yandy wiped her tears, her voice softening. "I'm not perfect. I stated that I pushed boundaries and occasionally let honest worries leak out into angry words, but I never tried to harm you." Rasheeda choked, her voice tight. "So why did I feel abandoned?" she said. Yandy rose and bridged the space between them. They put a hesitant touch on Rasheeda's arm. "Because I let drama drive. I lost sight of what was important." When she said, "You're my sister," the confession cut. A knock on the door stopped the directors. The voice crackled. "We'll be rolling in 10 minutes. The reminder drummed up urgency. In their hearts, Yandy and Rasheeda exchanged looks. Both knowing their next stages would play out on camera, Jock spoke first. "Let's go through the action together. Recommended that working side by side might remind us of why we began this journey." Rasheeda nodded slowly. "Okay," she continued, "but we need an honest contract. Secrets, no affiliations beyond this chamber." Yandy gave a hesitant grin. "I guarantee," she murmured. Rasheeda's lips twisted into a timid smile. "I vow to them." Following Jock back to the set, the halls narrowed until they stood once again beneath the light studio. The crowd clapped as the MC welcomed them back, yet the sound seemed distant, as if a veil of personal reality existed between them and the public. The presenter introduced a special. Tonight's program will discuss the speculations and revelations that fans are astonished by. The promise of genuine honesty and emotions ran high as the actors prepared to unveil the truth. The cameras rolled, and Rasheeda, as Jock took their seats around the round sofa, the host began in a calm tone. "We know tensions are high. Let's start with you, Yandy. What precipitated this confrontation?" Yandy breathed, steadying herself. "I felt abandoned by my sister," she added, her voice steady despite the shaking underneath me. Rasheeda nodded as she felt marginalized by falsehoods disseminated about her, without justification. "Downcast, I feel she was hunting drama at any cost," she remarked. "I believed she didn't. I don't care about our link anymore." The host turned to Jock. "And you," he said as Yandy withdrew to a secluded area of the set, his heart beating money. Concern flashed across her face. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "Yandy, I have to do this," she replied, nodding firmly. "For Rasheeda's, for the family." Money smiled, pride flashing through her fear. "I know you will." Jock joined them, bringing both comfort and steel. "We're behind you," he told the three, shared a moment of solidarity before returning to the cameras, each realizing that their tale had just taken a dramatic turn. As the lights faded for a momentary reset, supporters at home pressed the refresh button. On social media, keen to catch every teaser and rumor, the Frost family's serenity had been preserved for a moment, only to be challenged again by a challenge that no one could ignore. With alliances changing and stakes increasing, the following. The chapter offered both betrayals and breakthroughs in equal measure. The unblinking eye of reality TV. The minute the loyalty test was revealed, the set seemed to pulse in anticipation. Yandy and Rasheeda exchanged a tight nod before shifting into position for the following scene, their faces masking of resolve and lasting pain. Gawk set up a little table between them, placed 3 envelopes labeled "Challenge Rules," evidence of allegiance, and the light altered to a cooler tone, enhancing the impression of gravity. Fans are surprised by how fast a humorous test may become a battlefield for trust and emotions. Ran high as the ladies prepared to confront their most intimate performance. Although Yandy cautiously opened the first package, her fingers trembled. Inside contained a single card per week. Complete, a behind-the-scenes job that complements your sister's storyline without overshadowing your own. Glanced over to Rasheeda, searching her eyes for a flicker of support. Rasheeda sighed softly and opened her mail. Her card said, "Share one secret about yourself that has never been revealed to remind your sister of your relationship." Jock saw their hearts pound as the weight of the deal gathered about them. Money and Cease hung in the wings, preparing themselves for the consequences. The host's voice crackled over the speakers. "Your first assignment starts now," she announced Yandy. "You'll shadow Rasheeda on her main storyline today, assisting with every step but speaking only when requested. Rasheeda, you will respond one intimate inquiry about your history. Live on camera to demonstrate sensitivity." The order lingered in the air like a binding spell. Yandy breathed and nodded, stepping off the stage toward Rasheeda, who stood near the garment rack, script sheets in hand. As they moved to the dressing room set, Rasheeda's makeup artist softly wiped at her cheeks to remove traces of tears. Yandy followed quietly, clutching Rasheeda's evening gown for her. Sounds were the hiss of steam irons and the rustling of cloth. Cease gave Rasheeda her writing, and Rasheeda stared at Yandy. Her eyes were filled with vulnerability. "Anything," she replied meekly. Gentler than before, Yandy paused. Her eyes dropped as she recalled the long evenings they spent confiding in one another and murmured secrets after rap. She summoned strength and met Rasheeda's eyes. "What is the most difficult thing you've ever forgiven me for?" she asked. Though the makeup artist halted mid-wipe, crew personnel froze mid-task, and even Jock Rasheeda's lips parted as memories poured over her. "When I found out you released my personal messages to producers," she admitted gently. "Yay," shuddered remorse sweeping over her. Rasheeda said, "I was hurt and felt betrayed, but I forgave you because I believed in our friendship." Her words dropped like a bomb on Yandy's wounded heart. Viewers are astonished by Rasheeda's honesty, and the family was no longer divided, but rather transformed by vulnerability. The director called rolling, and the cameras caught the moment Rasheeda straightened her voice and repeated her response. "For the audience, that moment damaged my trust. Yet I chose forgiveness since Yandy was like a sister," and tears sparkled in her eyes, an unrestrained expression of passion unusual in stage acting. Yandy nodded. "Thank you," she said, her voice husky with tears. With a brief wobbly grin, the cameras went to Jock, who wiped his own tears. "That was brave," he remarked softly. Next, it was Yandy's chance to perform. Throughout the afternoon session, she carefully stalked Rasheeda, carrying scripts, cueing lines, retrieving props, but did not speak until Rasheeda urged people to watch and wonder. Yandy anticipated every need, providing a modest nod or a delicate touch. Rasheeda's arm during a heated dispute scene. Subsequently, Rasheeda's performance. Andy stepped in with a whispered line suggestion that stabilized her. The director applauded the seamless, unaware of the gesture's greater meaning. Emotions ran high as spectators saw Yandy's dedication in action. Toward the end of the day, the set plunged into, with a quiet, the host returned to your center stage. "You both completed today's jobs with honesty and integrity," she added. "But true refreshed." A crew member arrived with a tablet. "Your first social challenge comment is live," she stated. Three clustered around as tweets lit up. "Yandy's loyalty job is really nice." Rasheeda's revelation was real family drama at its best. Jock grinned at them. Response: Money and Cease joined them, excitement spreading. "Your trending Money," stated. Yandy's lips curled into a timid grin. "Maybe this task is more drama," she remarked. "Maybe it's healing." The next morning at Hair and Makeup, Rasheeda finds herself at the center of a fresh storyline. Reconnecting with Yandy on social media, producers had organized 4 live responses. Rasheeda: "Today, I stood alongside my sister and saw Yandy's tweet of support appear on a teleprompter behind the camera. Because family is more than ratings." Tears threatened to flow. Rasheeda, she calmed herself and turned to meet Yandy's gaze. "I see your loyalty." Yandy nodded. "And I see yours." The cameras caught each flare of genuine feeling is a testimony to the challenge's power. Back on set, Jessica watched from across the studio, arms crossed. Jock spotted her face harden. "She's not pleased that you both drew closer," he murmured to Yandy and glanced across. "She never was happy." Rasheeda grabbed her hand and said, "Unless she controls the chaos, maybe we'll keep creating our own tale," she added. The words seemed like a victory hymn for the group surrounding them. Later that day, when the challenge came to an end, the host reemerged with pleased expressions. "It's time to reflect," she remarked, gesturing toward a giant screen behind her, showcasing snippets of Yandy and Rasheeda's tours, moments of support weeping. Confession fans were attracted by the surprising shift from competition to after the reunion. The host asked the sisters, "How does it feel to have your path laid bare?" She asked. Yandy spoke first. "It's scary," she said, "but also liberating. I've learned that loyalty be louder than drama." Rasheeda nodded in agreement, and that vulnerability rebuilt what was broken. Emotions ran strong as the three hugged. On stage, Jessica beckoned for her reaction, took a seat opposite them, her lips twisted into a timid grin. "I see. I misjudged you both," she said. "Loyalty isn't about sides. It's about whatever happens, we will stand together." The words lingered in the air like a confession. Hinted at her own change, he leaned over and gripped Jessica's hand, connecting the four in a tight circle. Even the host was caught away by the display of solidarity, provided a genuine grin as the cameras panned out to capture the sight of oneness that no one could have choreographed.